Well, good morning. Are you surprised to see me out here this morning? I couldn't help it. Even though it's kind of drizzling and certainly wet, it's so great to have the rain and to be out here in it. I love it. And it's not light quite yet, but I'm grateful. Morning, everyone. Let's see. Wendy and Jeremy, Jonathan, good morning. Debbie King, good morning. Barbara Richardson. Janisa, good morning. Despina. Yeah, it's just beautiful out here. I love the smell of rain. I'm getting wet, but it's okay. I was hoping the rain would just stop a little bit, enough for me to. I mean, it's only sprinkling, but I dare not take my Bible out to read, so I'm going to have to paraphrase this morning. Um, and my sharing this morning is a bit of a ramble because just reflecting on a truth that I haven't totally clarified in my mind and my thinking. Um, but I'll tell you where I landed this morning. Lori Cares, good morning. Jim and Kathy Fuente, good morning. So I read Psalm 48, and Psalm 48 is not a Psalm of David. I think it's a Psalm of the sons of Korah, and they are. Just want to keep saying hello to people. Sorry, Alyssa Tucker, good morning. Stephen Andrea, good morning. Alyssa, I hope the event on Saturday was to your liking, and you guys put so much work in for Carly. I was praying for you all this morning once again, just so blessed by some of the pictures I saw posted, and I hope that event was such a great success. You know, we were here with the wedding all day, all Friday and Saturday, but we were certainly thinking of you all and for Carly. So blessed by your devotion and faithfulness to your dear friend. So again, I digress. I'm in Psalm 48. So the psalmist, which is Korah, sons of Korah, they're writing about the temple as the dwelling place of God, and they are. He is the writer is just speaking of the magnificence of the temple, and look at its citadels and how glorious the temple is, and that represents how they felt about God and who He was, and God chose to dwell in what we would come to know as the Holy of Holies of the temple. He blessed the building of the temple. He made Himself known there. He honored the sacrifices of all who would come into its courts to worship God and so on. But one thing that struck me in the reflection of the beauty and the majesty of the temple and God's dwelling there is that when David, it made me think of 2 Samuel chapter 7. You can read this for yourself because it's really a great chapter. When David has been given peace from his enemies, and he's already built a palace for himself, and he says, here I am living in this great palace of the king, and God is still dwelling in the tabernacle, the tent. And he says, he goes to the prophet Nathan, I want to build, a magnificent dwelling for God. And Nathan said, that's a great idea. Good, do it. God is for you. But then God that night appears to Nathan in a vision or a dream or something and says, David's not going to build me a temple. And he says, I can't quote it verbatim, but he says, did I ever ask for a temple to be built for me? Aren't the dimensions and materials that I gave as my dwelling, don't you already have them in a tent? That was my, that's the design. that I gave. I didn't give a design for a magnificent building with all its gold and jewels and citadels and all of that. And in fact, when the writer of Hebrews is describing the heavenly tabernacle and the earthly tabernacle, he's not talking about the temple anymore. He's talking about that earthly tent. In fact, that's the only design that was patterned after the design that actually exists in heaven, according to the writer of Hebrews. Not the temple, not the magnificent temple. It was a tent, and God didn't chide David for this desire. I mean, obviously he honored that desire, even though he didn't request it. God was happy to dwell in the tent. That was by his choice and his design. And but instead of chiding David, he says, you want to build me a house? No house can contain me. I'm God. But I will build you a house. And God made a promise right there in chapter 7 of 2 Samuel that he would make sure that someone from David's family would always sit on his throne. In fact, Christ came from the line of David. And what a blessing. David wants to bless God. God says, I didn't ask for that. But because I'm pleased with you, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to make a household for you. And that's just the way God's heart is. He is happy to dwell in a tent because an earthly building, an earthly dwelling, does not befit a God such as the God that we serve, the God that cannot be contained in any way. It is fitting, according to God, how he communicates himself to us, that his dwelling would be this mobile dwelling of a tent. And I love that image because it somehow foreshadows you and me. Because Paul refers to our earthly bodies as a tent. 2 Corinthians chapter 12. We have this tent, this earthly temporary dwelling, but our real, true dwelling is waiting for us in heaven. He talks about the temple is no longer the temple in Jerusalem, but the temple of the Spirit of God, according to the New Testament, is us, this earthly tent. And God chooses to display his glory through this tent. Paul would say in another way, we have this treasure in jars of clay. How God chooses to use us. You want to build me something magnificent, great? No, I'm going to choose to build you. I'm going to choose to build you a house. I'm going to dwell in you. This jar of clay, this temporary dwelling, this tent of your body, as flawed as it is, as prone to sin or distorted thinking or disease and even death, I'm choosing to dwell in you because that's how people will see my true glory. And my true heart is to love and I'm a humble God. As magnificent and holy and righteous and powerful and sovereign as God is, he's a humble God. And he wants to glorify himself through the church, through you, through me. And one final thought I thought with regard to this is sometimes we can get our eyes on the magnificence of God's house. Whether it's a church building or a ministry that we've built, and we look at the house and we look at this temporary structure and say, isn't it great? It's the best on the block, Look at all the ways that God is manifesting himself, through all these things. And we know that the temple in Jerusalem was torn down twice. Once at the end of Israel's reign of kings, when Babylon came and destroyed the temple, and then once again after the generation that rejected Jesus in AD 70, Rome destroyed the temple and has never been rebuilt. And I want us to remember that these earthly structures that God has chosen to bless for a time are just according to his plan and his glory. We've got to be able to keep our hands open with those things that we enjoy in this life. Even our ministries, even our little churches here, and our church in Amador County, as great, as wonderful as we celebrate these things, we have to hold them with open hands because we know that God doesn't dwell in buildings or even ministries. He chooses to glorify himself in them. He chooses to glorify himself in us. But this tent is temporary. It's going to go away. And so my thoughts were this morning just celebrating who God was apart from all the benefits of him. To delight in him alone, to abide in him, to draw near to him and rejoice and seek to find my core satisfaction and fulfillment and healing in him, not in what he might do for me or the temporary things that I get to enjoy in this life. The real treasure is God himself. And those are just some thoughts that I had based upon my reflections on beginning with Psalm 48, then turning to 2 Samuel chapter 7, and then 2 Corinthians 12. So be blessed today. The Lord, take your delight in the Lord and the gifts. Boy, we're just celebrating the gifts of the rain that he gives us. I can hear the rain all around me. The ground is wet and drinking up the rain, and we're so grateful for that. We so need rain, and I know there's more rain in the forecast, so let us give glory to God and delight in him. He is good. Be blessed today. We will see you again tomorrow morning.